In this video, I'm starting a Pathology and Conscious Healing course. This is a course I've been gearing up for a very, very long time, especially in a more focused way the last 1.5 to 4 years in different ways. And really the first 30 years of my life with astrology, I spent so much time focusing on discovering the weaknesses in the chart, what's ailing us, what's hurting us, finding the problems in the chart, finding the pathology, the disease, the pain in the chart. And after I had my Saturn return of my astrology career, from when I got into astrology and then I had my Saturn return, during that year, things started shifting in my life to where instead of learning about everything wrong with the chart, I was actually starting to correct the things that were happening in the chart. And I went to a much greater level of health within myself and overcame a lot of long-term physical problems I'd had for a very, very long time that I really had since my 20s, okay? And, and I got into this more of a phase of, okay, now it's time to use in the second Saturn return. Now we've learned how to, all the different ways, the Logitalia Vashas and so on, to see what's wrong in the chart, we need to now develop means and ways to heal what's in the chart. And this is my first course really focusing on that. And I've done this to some degree in all the Logitalia Vashta courses. I've talked about how these things have been healed, but in this course it's going to be a much more focused of let's actually heal this. What do we really need to do to heal this thing that we're seeing in the chart? Discovering it is a huge part of the problem, a huge part of the work. And but the final and big step is to actually resolve these things within ourselves that we see in our chart. So in this course, I'm basically going to teach a method to resolve our pathologies with the help and use of our astrology charts, okay, in the hope of shortening the methodology, shortening the procedure, and getting through it quicker with more clarity and understanding. Now, what is pathology? If I had to define pathology, I would say pathology is what grows in the absence of love. It's that simple. When there's an absence of love, this thing grows, that's called pathology. And pathology ultimately is what's making your life not work. Every problem you've had in your life is a result of pathology. And by every problem, I don't mean you stubbed your toe or you got in a car accident. I don't mean that exactly. I meant every bad moment you had where you didn't feel happy on earth is really the result of pathology. Okay? So our goal is really to heal the pathology. And get ourselves to a state where we're feeling happy and we're feeling okay, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of fate, regardless of circumstances. Instead of suffering, even in good circumstances. That's the fun part about pathology. Even in good circumstances, we can find ourselves suffering, right? So, pathology is what grows in the absence of love. And so when we're looking at the chart and we're looking at the Logitalia Vashas, what we're essentially doing is we're looking to see if this planet is in a state of experiencing love or not. If it's in a state of not experiencing love, we know there's pathology in that planet. Well, that planet is a better way of saying it, is an indicator of pathology. All right. Now, what pathology really does, it doesn't really come from the planets. It actually comes out of the circle. The circle is the circle of the zodiac, the ecliptic, the circle of the Adityas. And the circle, we all know, is a symbol of love, right? So we're looking at the zodiac now, at the circle of the 12 signs, as a circle of love. And every point along this circle is defined by, this exact mathematical position where a planet can be. And of course, that exact mathematical position has a Rashi, a Hora, a Navamsha, a Trimsamsha, a D60, and so on. If you look through the Vargas, that's a very small little point. Very specific. It's specified by the different Vargas, essentially. Okay? And so every one of these points is really a different experience of love. All right? And when we look at the planets and we study the Logitalia Vashas, we're simply seeing was this part of space, this little bit of the circle, was there an experience of love here or a lack of love? Or there was an experience of even abuse here? Okay? Now remember, pathology grows in the absence of love. I didn't say pathology grows in the face of abuse. These are different things, okay? It grows in the absence of love. So any point that's showing an absence of love is going to indicate an element of aspect of pathology. Now, we have our 7 planets, Sun through Saturn, and Rahu and Ketu. It's very uncommon to have one planet that's having a full absence of pathology. Okay, that's in a full state of love, but you will see it. But it's very, very uncommon. And then it's possible to see a planet that was grown in the full absence of love and a great degree of abuse. Okay, it's very rare to see that, but you will see those things. Okay, most planets, though, were grown in a mixed environment of love and absence of love. Okay, with something good there and something not so good there, and that's because we're working on these planets. And ultimately, the goal is to have a greater expression of love and a greater experience of love. All right, and those things grow together. The greater expression of love results in the greater experience of love. And the expression of love, the experience of love, is essentially the adityas. These are the solar gods of Hinduism that are related astronomically to the 12 portions of to the 12 rashis. And each of these adityas represents an expression of love. So we take this circle, which is the circle of love, and we start dividing it up. So we divide it up into these 12 portions of adityas, and now we have 12 aspects of love. There's basically 12 basic expressions of love, okay, in respect to these adityas. So if we have a planet somewhere, the planet's either expressing this love or it's stuck in expressing this love, which means it's expressing a state of health or it's expressing a state of pathology. So when we look at the Lajitadhyavastas of any planets, we see the planets that are, along this circle and expressing love if the Lajitadhyavasta is good, and expressing pathology if and lack of love, which is the same thing, if the Avashta is bad. And so we simply look at these planets and we see which part of the circle is afflicted. And then we see what aspect of love is not flowing. Okay? So I've talked a lot about that in the Aditya course. But we're going to go much more deeper and much more specific into it now to a level we can actually get our hands on it and heal it. But so on a basic level, pathology is that which grows in the absence of love. We see where love is present and absent by looking at the adityas that the planets are falling into. Okay? Now, that's the astrological definition. That's the philosophical definition of pathology, is what grows in the absence of love. That's the astrological definition. And now we need to understand pathology in the context of our being. Okay? And why pathology is so slippery. We look at the world and we see all these people doing things, and we look back and we go, oh my God, what are they thinking? This is sick, This leader, this person, Hitler, so on, these are like sick bastards, And we look at them and we could just see that they're operating in this state of, wow, this is not harmony, this is not love, there's something wrong here. Yet, from their perspective, from their point of view, they're good people. From their perspective, they're thinking, this is the way to do this. I want to do this. This is really what I'm here to do. This is my mission from God. They're thinking these things. Okay? And of course, some people are thinking more psychopathic thoughts for sure. But if you just look around in your life and you watch the normal people in life doing things, you realize that they're doing things that are misaligned to their goal of what they want to have. They say they want to make money, but they're not doing what makes money. They say they want to be in love, but they're not doing what puts them in love. We see these inconsistencies. And we see all this because it's so hard to look within ourselves and say which part of us is true and which part is pathology. Okay? Imagine pathology as this little alien that gets inside of you, sinks its talons into your nervous system, starts growing nerves up into your brain, up into your heart and emotions, and is starting to dictate your life now. And when you say, I want to do this, You think it's you because this thing has taken over your nervous system, your brain, your emotional body. And you really think this is what you want to do. I want to do this. I want to be with this kind of person. I want to have money. I want to be a great this or that. You know, we walk around our lives, we literally walk around in our lives thinking, I want this, when it's actually not us. There's something else, this little alien creature, let's say, that got embedded inside us so closely and is so knit with our biology and our consciousness that we literally identify with its wishes. So imagine that, okay, like a sci-fi horror movie. Of course, that's not what's really happening, but imagine that so you get the picture. That there's a force within us that we so strongly identify with that the dictates of that force, we think it's us. We think, oh, I really need to do this. This is what matters to me. I love this. We say this, and it may not be true. Okay? Because this force has infiltrated us to such a degree that we can't tell the difference between that alien force and ourselves. And then we're making decisions thinking it's ourselves. This is me, this is who I am, etc., and it's actually not. So look at pathology as this entity that has attached itself to you. And that's literally what it is. We have our true self. That's what's true to us. And as we go through the traumas of life, we start holding on to things. You know, the traumas of life from the moment we're in the womb, okay? And up to the first 3 years of our life, that 3 years, 9 months of traumatic experiences that we all go through to a greater or lesser degree, are causing us to literally identify with and out of traumatic experiences. And then we start living our lives as if those traumatic experiences are truly us. Okay, so, for instance, on a real simple note, you know, your mom doesn't pay attention to you when you're 3 months old. Who knows why? Okay? Maybe she decided she didn't want to have kids. Maybe the lover she was having an affair with died. Maybe dad cheated on her and she was devastated. But for some reason, all of a sudden, she's like, I don't have any energy for my 3-month-old kid. Or maybe she gets cancer or gets really ill. Or her dad dies and she has to leave you with, your dad and go, deal with her dad's and, bury him and maybe take care of him for a few months. And in essence, the 3-month-old child is left alone. And that's traumatic to the child. And that gives a message to the child that you're not important enough. My relationship, your father having an affair is more important than you. My lover dying is more important than you. My dad being sick and needing me to take care of him is more important than you. And so the child gets that message. If the mother is all of a sudden gone when it's young, especially in the first year of life. And so this child grows up identifying with this identification of that trauma that said, you're not important. And the child grows up with identification of, I'm not important. So every decision they're making now is coming out of the identification as, I don't matter, I'm not important. Now think what kind of decisions that child might make. They might decide, I'm not important, but I need to be important, and become a mega-egomaniac. It's all about me. It has to be my way, Or maybe they'll decide, I'm not important. I guess that's just the way it's going to be. I'm not going to really take on any responsibility. I'm just going to be a trivial person. I'm not going to co-create with God. I'm just going to kind of sit here and binge watch TV the rest of my life, enjoy entertainment, go to music concerts, read a book every once in a while, goof off, hang out with my friends when I can too, and there's nothing important for me to do. Neither of those extremes are true. Each of our lives matters in the greater scheme of things. Each of us is a brushstroke in the painting of the big picture of life that God is creating. But if we have this trauma that tells us you're not important, and we think that's us, we're not going to be a beautiful brushstroke that we could be in that painting. And that's what pathology is. It's this identification with something that is not true. With identification of the experience of a trauma that is not true. And of course, that experience of the trauma happens in the absence of love. And therefore we have a pathology now. Okay? So, to heal, what we have to do, we have to let go of the improper identification, the lie identification, and then do we have to embrace the true identification? No. The true identification doesn't need to be embraced because it's true. It exists. It's there. It's real. It's never going away. All we have to do is release the lie, the improper identification. When we do that, the true identification is there waiting for us. Not that we don't need to do anything. It's waiting for us. The same way that God's love is waiting for us as soon as we align our misguided egos. Okay? So, in this course, what we're going to be doing, using these adityas, and I'll explain that a little more in a moment, we're going to learn how to look deeply, deeply into your chart and into yourself. And through the chart, we're going to give you the roadmap, the thing to look for and search for in the darkness of your psyche. That's not you. Okay? First, you'll be able to see through the chart like, oh, wow, you're right. Because this planet's at this 5 degrees of this sign, you're right. This part of my life is not working. And you're right. I'm doing it in a way that never works. And then you'll follow that road to the pathology, because I'm going to present the picture of pathology. And then you can go inside yourself and contemplate that image, and then you'll find that image in yourself. It won't be the exact same color, it won't be the exact size, but it'll be of that essence. And we find the essence of the pathology in ourselves, then we can see, wait a minute, we see it as separate from ourselves. We literally will realize, wow, that's a shoe I've been wearing, calling it my foot. And when someone stepped on that shoe, I said, ouch, you hurt my foot. But they really didn't, And then, once we identify it, once you, in a contemplative state, in a conscious but contemplative state, can find that pathology in yourself, it's quite easy to just let it go. The reason we can't let it go is because we're fully identified with it, and we don't know it, and we don't know where to look. Therapy, all kinds of therapies just have this one purpose of finding this thing that you're living out of. That's not you. The lie, the trauma, the pain, etc. And here we're going to very consciously, using the chart, identify that pathology in a way that we can contemplate and seek that within ourselves. Okay? And then you can release it. Now, for some people, depending on what's strong in your chart and what's weak, you'll be able to release it very easily. Other people, you might need to go further and get a therapist to help them release that, because you might be just getting it, but it might be so embedded you can't release it. So everyone will work at their own pace. But at the end of the day, all healing is about self-realization, which means not identifying what's false and learning to see what's true, to realize the self. Because we're really lost in identification. All pathology, well, I'm going ahead of myself. We have a lot of stuff to cover. Okay, so to do this, we can't use Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. They're not going to cut it for us. Those are Kali Yuga symbols of Kali Yuga astrology. And now we're in the age of the psyche, which is the eternal age of the Dwapara Yuga. And now we're going back to using the Dwapara Yuga symbols of the zodiac, of the signs, that were in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was written at the end of the last Dwapara Yuga, is when we were given this book. And I really believe that these were the symbols they used in that Kali Yuga, and Aries, Taurus, Gemini just kind of showed up later in the Kali Yuga. They're very earthly symbols, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. And now we're dealing with the ditches. We're dealing with gods, We're dealing with the realms of the spirits and the gods. And every one of these adityas travels with 6 other beings. A male demigod, a female called a Gandharva, a female demigod called an Apsara, a nature spirit called a Yaksha, a demonic entity called a Rakshasa. Okay? I don't like to use that word. Let's say a violently encouraging entity called the Rakshasa. So something that pushes you forward, the pain that pushes you through life. And the Rishi, which is the wisdom, the being of wisdom, the teacher who shows up in the hero's journey, the old man with the staff who gets the hero aligned towards his purpose and journey. So we have all these 6 beings as part of the circle of love. And for every 30 degrees, every sign, every Rashi, we have these 6 beings involved in the motion and expression of the love of that aditya. Okay? And when we're in that state of expressing that love, we feel good. Where we feel good in our life is where we're able to express that love. Where we're frustrated, bitter, angry, depressed about life, it's where we're not expressing that love. It's that simple. So through this symbology, which is heavenly beings, demigods and gods, the solar gods, what's in the heavens, well, when you start symbolically going out into the heavens, you're going into the internal life, into the inner life. The heavenly alignment is the alignment within ourselves. All right? So for this journey, we have to use the aditya. So we'll be using these. If you did take the aditya course, great. That'll be better. But you can do this course without doing the aditya course, because what I'm going to say about these beings is going to be very specific to this course. So there's not, like, you're not going to get the information on these beings that you need to do this course and do the healing. It's simply that the more you know about them, the faster and deeper you can go. All right? So we're going to use these beings. And each of these beings rules a different part of a sign. It has its strength in a different part of the sign. So when we see an absence of love, we know that this aditya is not expressing a certain kind of love. Like, let's take Indra. He's the love of self. Okay, this is a really critical love to have, the love of self. If we see an afflicted planet in Indra, the person's lacking a love of self. They grew in an environment that did not respect the love of self. Did not respect the uniqueness of a self. But how that manifested, we can look on deeper levels by seeing what being is impacted in Indra specifically. Okay? Is it the female demigod, the Apsara, and so on. So I'm not going to explain this too much, but that's the gist of the course. We'll be looking deeply into that. Then also, the relationship we have to the things of the world, our partners, our job, our wealth, our friends, all the 12 houses are the things, right? The relationships we have with these things will be healthy or pathological depending on where something falls in these signs. Because where something falls in each sign stirs up the effects of different houses. So when we look at the 7th house for relationships, we need to do that. But potentially any planet in any sign is stimulating a 7th house event, a 7th house focus that's healthy or unhealthy. And so part of the pathological picture is to understand how your pathology is manifesting through the houses. So let's say you get a person who's a billionaire, yet they have a fear of poverty. And so they need to get more and more. And then there's a person who has just enough money in his wallet to get by the next day, and he's not worried about money. He has a prosperity consciousness. Fear of poverty comes out of a lack of love. It's a, absence of love. It's a pathology. And it doesn't matter how much money a person has, fear of pathology can be right there with them. Prosperity conscious is healthy. It grows out of a consciousness of love, an experience of love. And it doesn't matter how much money that person has or doesn't have, they know that everything's going to come that they need to get through the next step of their life. But the billionaire with the fear of poverty is freaking out and becomes greedy, greedy, greedy. Why are so many billionaires so greedy? Because they have a poverty consciousness. Why are many people billionaires? Because their pathology, their poverty consciousness is just screaming at them, you need money. They don't take time to count 60 billion. All they hear is, I need money. And they really think they do. I mean, that's pathology. I mean, it's the billionaire who thinks they needs money, right? That's what they're thinking. If they don't think that, no rational creature has $60 billion would spend another day of their life working, would think they need more money, would get upset if someone takes their money. Or get upset if their corporation ends. I mean, if I had 60 billion, my corporation ended, I would go, dang, finally I can take a vacation. It would be good news, right? Finally I can spend some of that money. But they have this little pathological voice saying, I don't have enough money. And they really believe it. They believe that pathological voice. So literally, these very practical things that we screw up in our lives, we will be able to study and see where that pathology, what is flowing out of. What house is that literally flowing into in our lives and distorting? Okay? And we do that with these beings. We cannot do this without these beings and this system of adityas. Okay? We're dealing with a whole nother level of astrology now. Okay, so we're going to very specifically be able to, like when I said create the picture of pathology, I mean you're experiencing fear of poverty. You're experiencing fear of heights. You know, things like that. And all these things are symbolic of a traumatic experience that happened because there was an absence of love. Okay? Now, disease happens on the mental, emotional, and physical levels. Okay? Mental disease is the foundation of all disease. And it's simply the identification with the wrong idea. Okay? A billionaire who thinks he needs money, that's not true. That's a wrong idea. You know? But yet many billionaires have this idea. So that would be called a mental disease. Thinking I am a body is a mental disease. It's not true. Okay? Any idea that's not true is a mental disease on the most basic level. So we go through a trauma as a child. Mom disappears for a month when we're 3 months old, and we end up thinking no one prioritizes me. I'm not important. And now we have mental disease that says I'm not important. Okay? That's not true. All right? It's simply a thought that is believed. That's a mental disease. Okay? The reality is we're important as we're supposed to be. We're perfectly important. You know? Some people play bigger roles in the movie. Some people get to have more relaxed roles in the movie. It's not about size. Unless you have a size pathology, it's a whole other pathology. And then it is about size. I have to have the big role. Why? Big role is really not as enjoyable down here as a small role if you think about it. Life can be a lot sweeter with a small role because it gives you time to do what really matters in a way, you know? So, you know, any wrong idea is a mental pathology. And every Bhattavashta planet in the chart is indicating a wrong idea. An idea that this is true when it's not. An idea this is how I do something, this is how it works. A belief that in practice will not work. Okay? Every problematical thing. And because of the traumas in our life growing up, we create a belief system. And this is a deeply internal belief system. It's deep, deep, deep. It's not just in your head. It's a belief system of your unconsciousness. And the problem with the unconsciousness, we have our conscious mind, which is great for figuring things out, great for directing yourself to heal yourself and so on, like we're going to do in this course. We're going to use our conscious minds. But our conscious minds can't heal because all the disease is in the unconsciousness. It's much deeper than that. The source of the disease is in the unconsciousness. Underneath the unconsciousness, we have the truth, called the superconsciousness. That's where the truth of our being comes out of. Between our conscious mind and the truth of our superconsciousness, which is where we're connected to God's consciousness, we have this unconsciousness full of, you know, imagine it like an ocean that's full of beautiful mermaids, beautiful elegant galley ships, surfboard, you know, all kinds of cool stuff, along with some, you know, giant monsters, you know, carnivorous rabid sharks, you know, that eat everything, and, you know, all these monsters. And to get to that super consciousness, you have to swim through that ocean. The health of your planet shows how many monsters are there compared to how many beautiful galley ships and mermaids. You know, you want the mermaids, right? Okay. So, although always in myth, mermaids are not so pleasant, so watch out for those mermaids, right? Okay. So, we have to go through that. So, this mental disease, it comes as thoughts, but they're not always clearly conscious thoughts. It comes as motivations, but it's not always clearly conscious motivations. It comes out of the ideas that are embedded in the trauma and the experience of love of the in the unconsciousness. And that caused us to have an automatic behavior, just thinking this is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is me, and this is what I want. Some of it might be true, some of it's not true. Or it's not true where life's not working. Okay? When we do things that don't work, when we have a belief or an idea that this is what makes love work, and you go try to have love work that way and it fails, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to be depressed. When we act out of what doesn't work, we suffer emotionally. We get emotional diseases, basically. Okay? When our emotional body gets deranged, we get physical diseases. A lot of people have huge physical diseases. They ask, how do you feel? I'm fine. Do you ever get angry? No, I'm not angry at all. Yet, they're having serious physical problems. Those physical problems are due to the repression of what they are not feeling. They say, oh, I feel fine. Yeah, when you repress all your emotions and you get a disease, emotionally you feel fine. Yes, if you repress all your anger into your body, yeah, your body gets aches and pains and you blow out hips, knees, backs. And all that is emotions that are screaming for attention that you have developed a mechanism to not listen to. Why? Because it hurts. Okay? So out of emotional pathology, we get physical pathologies. And it goes the opposite way too. All disease enters the body through the physical plane. All of it. It enters the body through the physical plane. It goes into the emotional plane of making us feel unhappy. And then we create a stupid idea. So, mom leaves at 3 months old for a month and she's gone. No explanation. And if she explained, you wouldn't know what she meant. I'll be back in a month. What's a month? I'm 3 years old. 3 months old. All there is now. And I need you now, Mom. I don't understand. You'll be back in a month. Don't get it. The child mind doesn't get that. It lives in the now. So, the experience of mom leaving happens to the physical, right? All of a sudden this soft, warm jug of milk is gone, you know? And it's the physical body that registers that. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I don't feel good, I'm not getting this vibration. It enters through the senses which are in the body. And then the baby feels scared, frightened, and then out of that fear it develops thoughts. I don't matter, I'm not important. You know, and so disease enters the body through the physical, and also from the mental, emotional, and physical planes, it transcends that way. Now, the disease that enters the body physically through the experience of trauma on physical planet Earth, those are because of, you know, we could say our karmas, but what our karmas means, those are simply to reset us to the level of consciousness that we had as our last experience, let's say. Okay, so if you felt unimportant at the end of your last life, you're going to be born into a situation in your life that makes you feel unimportant. And now you have another lifetime of trying to prove yourself or deciding to be useless, okay? Depending what extreme you want to go. This is what pathology drives us to do. Love comes with peace. If there's not peace there, it's not love. We're meant to have an experience of love and peace, all right? And that only happens when we're free from these pathologies. So all pathologies, a person can be stuck in a mental, emotional, or physical pathology. It's not like we're in these equally. At different times in our life, different people, more or less, will be in different pathologies. People in extreme mental pathologies won't have physical problems. Okay? People with extreme physical problems usually don't have as many mental problems. Go to an Alzheimer's ward, which is obviously a mental disease, right? Their brains don't even work anymore. And there'll always be an Alzheimer's ward at the nursing home. And you can ask the nurses, who gets sick more and has more physical problems? The people in the Alzheimer's ward or the people not in the Alzheimer's ward? And they're like, oh gosh, the people who are not in the Alzheimer's ward always need physical care, always got to take them to this and that, to have all these physical problems. But yeah, you know, the people in the Alzheimer's ward, they're just so healthy. Physically, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just such a shame their brains deteriorated, you know? And they're not thinking that, but the reality is if the brains hadn't deteriorated, all that mental disease would have been gone into the physical disease, and they would have had all those problems. So it's when you really study this, you start seeing how we can contain our disease on a particular level and not have it on another level. Okay? So when you see these people that are just so healthy, well, Maybe they're lucky, but lots of times it's simply because all the disease is stored on the mental level. And when you start looking at their ideas and their thoughts, you find out, oh my God, the things this person thinks, this is insane, you know? It's a mental disease, insane, right? So, disease moves through bodies. It moves up and down through these bodies, the way we want it to move, and when we heal from the mental to the emotional to the physical. So let's say you can have a thought of, I don't really matter, so, you know, I'm just not going to show my feelings, you know? Because I don't matter, no one's going to take care of them, right? So you spend 40 years of your life not really showing your feelings because they're not going to matter, because you had a trauma as a child that said you don't matter, which means your feelings don't matter, right? As well. And then you decide to change that thought one day. You get an experience that makes you go, wait a minute, I do matter. You know, and now you change this idea to the fact that you do matter. And then all of a sudden your emotions start mattering too. Except you have 40 years of backlogs of emotions to catch up on. And now because you decide you matter and therefore your feelings matter, these feelings are going to say, finally we're going to catch up. Then you spend the next 4 years of your life totally going batshit crazy on an emotional level because all these emotions are coming to the surface saying, we mattered 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and now you're going to finally listen to us. And so now a person seems to be on a major emotional disease. You know, they're just going crazy emotionally, full of pain, you know. No, they're actually healing. But now that mental disease causes the release of all these emotions that have been repressed. And it can look like emotional disease, but it's emotional healing. We have to understand that. If not, we say, God, something's wrong with them. Give them the Prozac, repress those emotions, make them stable. I'm like, no. Let them be unstable for as long as it takes. Now, if on the other hand, the person started it with the wrong idea, yeah, now they need a different kind of treatment. So we have to understand how disease moves. So if a person feels unimportant, has a terrible breakup that leaves them feeling very unimportant, it's not like they healed, they just went into a deeper level of unimportance, and that can also disturb the emotion. So we have to examine and understand how disease moves. But when disease moves into the emotional level, we can feel like shit. But we're in a better state if our thoughts are more truthful, if our beliefs about ourselves are more true, if our mind is in a more loving experience. Okay? And the emotional stuff, it's going to leave through the physical body. And so then, as the emotional stuff starts leaving and you start feeling better emotionally, you can expect physical manifestations of your disease. And then if you go to the doctor and you get, cortisone because you're getting rashes all over you, because the emotional disease is leaving out of your body through your skin, and all that emotional ugh is now making you want to scratch your skin off you. And if you're pressed out with cortisone, you're sticking it right back into your emotional body. They did some research where they found that in mental institutions, when people were getting better and getting ready to be released because they were improving, they would get rashes. The disease was leaving through the physical body. Then they'd repress that with medications, and they would relapse mentally and emotionally and not go free. That's how it works. It's critical to know this if you really want to heal. As you heal, expect physical manifestations of disease releasing. Okay, you cannot stop that. Otherwise, all the work you did is going to get shoved right back in. So this is how it works. And we will discuss this somewhat in the course. I talked about this a lot in the Lajitadya Vashta's Heart of Parashara course, where I really talked about disease on the physical, mental, and emotional level. That's a course from like 5-6 years ago. Okay? Now, where we're very specific going to focus on this course, the first part is going to be the development of pathology. To understand how pathology develops from one layer to the other. We don't have a lot of pathologies. We only have 9 planets. At most we have 9 pathologies. Okay, it's not a lot. But it can feel like you have billions, One reason is because we have layers of pathologies. And we have a development of one layer to the next layer to the next layer. So we're going to understand the development of these layers because we need to understand what layer a person is on. Because we have to heal on the layer of pathology that a person is on at the moment. We can't heal on a on a deeper layer. Okay? It's just like if I'm wearing a jacket, a jacket, a tie, a shirt, and an undershirt, I can't take my undershirt off. Even if that's what's itching me. The undershirt has say, burrs all over the inside. It's driving me crazy. I want to get my undershirt off. I can't. First got to take my coat off. Then I have to take my necktie off. Then I have to take my shirt off. And now I can take my undershirt off. That's literally how it works. The only thing that's bothering me is my undershirt. In the same way, in ourselves, the only thing that's bothering us is our foundational pathology. And there's only 3 of those. Each of us is bothered by only one of 3 things, or possibly 2, or all of those 3 things. There's only 3 things that are really disturbing us. It's that simple. But out of those 3 things, we develop 4 different layers, which means there's 4 ways those 3 things to go. Those 3 basic pathologies. And now we have 12 what I call foundation-specific pathologies. The first 3 pathologies are the foundation pathologies. And you'll learn at a glance to see what this is in a chart. But you can't jump and heal that one because you got to take the other shirts off first. You got to heal those other layers first. The second layer is the foundation-specific. So that's when each of these 3 pathologies can flow into 4 different experiences, let's say. So now we have 12 pathologies. And yes, those 12 pathologies are the 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay? Now, those 12 specific foundational pathologies will affect either the male side or the female side more. So they impact your emotional body, your female hormone system more, or they impact the male side of your psyche more, your male hormones more. And so the disease will take on a more male or female nature. Now, diseases that are female-natured in women are going to go more extreme than that same disease in a man. It'll be easy to see that disease in a woman, but it won't be so easy to see that same disease in a man. Okay? It won't be as overt because his hormone system, his behavior is functioning more on the male half of his psyche. And the male half of the disease is going to obviously, things there are going to impact men much more and put a man into a stronger disease state than it would a woman. But both men and women can have either one. All right? So then the disease goes into a male-female dynamic. After that, it goes into the level of the elements. We have the 5 elements, right? Ether, air, fire, water, earth. At that point, the disease goes deeply into the level of the organs. Now a person's life is at threat. Because when an organ fails, you die, right? And also, at that point, a person's in a deep level of emotional disease because the elements and the congestion in the elements, the unhealth of the elements, is going to affect organs, and we experience our emotions in our organs. If our liver's in bad shape, we're frustrated. If our kidneys are in bad shape, we have fear, and so on. So depending on the element, and kidneys are water, liver is ether. So depending on the element affected, we're going to exhibit certain emotional patterns, emotional pathologies, because of the organs needing to be healed. All right? So we're going to look at all these in a very specific way. And as we, first we'll just cover the theory of how the disease is literally on a level of astronomy and astrology manifesting along these 4 levels. Okay? Now after this level, and also at the same thing, a healthy planet, of course, is going to manifest health along these levels. It will have a foundation of health, a specific foundation of health, a healthy aspect to the male or female sides of their psyche, and a very beautiful expression of and manifestation of some element. Okay? Now at that point, we've identified the health or pathology of a planet fully, along its full layers. And of course, that's going to manifest in life in very different experiences. And this is where, on a predictive level, it gets very, very interesting. So we can again go to the D60. And the D60 has these really crazy deities, like, Vishwa, poison. And then there's other ones that are nice, symbols. And those show where the person's expressing that love. So a person can have a healthy planet in a sign that creates a healthy elemental expression, and that healthy elemental expression is going to go into poison. So they're going to use poison in a loving way. Well, there's a lot of good ways to use poison, right? And, homeopathy, we're basically healing poison with poison. That's the whole concept of it. On the other hand, if there's an unhealthy planet there, the elemental expression is not of love, it's of pathology. And now they're going to use the poison in a malicious way, okay? In a way that's not helpful. It's not an element of love. So the beautiful thing when you really look at life, you see that people can deal with easy, beautiful things or difficult, hard things in both loving ways or unloving ways. And we're not going to take it to the level in this course of the D60 because that's more of a predictive type way. We'll probably have a little mini course on that later where we dive into that because that's more of a concrete manifestation of how the energy is specifically manifested in your world. And we don't need that for what we're trying to do here. All right, so this is what we're going to cover in this course. We're going to study how disease manifests, how the layers build on themselves. We're going to provide pictures of each layer of disease, of each possible disease. There's 60 elemental layers. There's 24 male-female layers. There's 12 foundation-specific layers, and there's 3 foundation layers. So that's 15 and 24 is 39 and 60. That's 99. Right? And I might have not have even done the math right today because when I start talking, my mathematical brain goes to sleep. Something around that number. So there's a lot of specific pictures we're going to look at. And each of these pictures is basically a picture of what happens when there's an absence of love, what grows in that, what do we identify with that's not true to ourselves, to the point that we're so identified with it, when we say, I want to do this, we really think we want to, but we don't. And then we go down life doing this thing and trying things in a way that we really think we want to, or really think we should, or really think we're supposed to, until we train wreck and find ourselves in a bad state. And by getting in touch with that picture, finding that specific thing in ourselves, we can release it. And now you're the dictator of your destiny, not this pathological creature, that was attached to you and running your life, like making you like a puppet. It's literally what's happening. Jung said, what remains in the unconsciousness manifests as fate. Okay. It's very true. It's our unconsciousness through these mechanisms we're talking about that are driving us along our fate. And it's in the healing of that our fate changes. Okay? Because the difference is who's driving. A force that comes out of your superconsciousness, the force of your true self, your soul, or is a trauma that has gotten attached to you so deeply that you think it's you. You think that that composite creature is actually you, and it's really not. And literally what happens on this too is it actually causes a derangement in our life force. Our life force is meant to be strong and true to our way of being, and it's supposed to be a flourish out of the self. But a trauma disrupts our life force, and the life force stays disrupted, and now we're not operating fully as ourselves. So energy work, acupuncture, all these things are designed to try to bring the life force back into balance, homeopathy to bring the life force back into balance, and when it's back into balance, we're able to operate out of ourselves. The problem is our consciousness, we go and get our needle stuck in us, we go and get our this or that treatment, or homeopathic treatment, whatever energetic treatment we get, and then we go home and our mind is still thinking all these stupid things, holding on to all these belief systems. And ultimately, until our mind makes the shift, until our mind releases this, we're not going to heal. So if a person can find the picture of pathology in themselves, and then through that, with their mind, release it, Now, when they go get the acupuncture treatment, the energy work, the Reiki, the homeopathy treatment, boom. Seriously, in 1 week to 1 month, their health can change on a dime. Instead of 6 years of acupuncture, getting that life force lined up, and then they go and derange it with their wrong thoughts, lining it up, deranging it, and taking years of healing. If we align our consciousness to the truth, if we recognize that pathology in ourselves, we can find that picture within ourselves and say, wow, that's not even me, and just let it go. Now your life force has to reestablish itself. And so then, if on top of that a person gets some other energetic therapy, the results are so fast. But you don't even need to. Because once the mind's not deranging the life force, essentially, it's all going to realign. Okay? I've had the most powerful healings in my life when I've done both of these. I've had some healings when I've just done it on a mental level. I've had some where I just did it with a homeopathic energetic level, and it was like, yeah, that was kind of nice, When I just did it on a mental level, but I did it, it was like, wow, But when I did it on a mental level, a level of consciousness, like I'm teaching this course, and I had the homeopathy, it was like really profound. It was like really powerful, very fast, and you can just do more work when your mind is aligned. Because the core problem is the mental, the wrong ideas, the wrong beliefs, the misidentification. When we say, I want to do this, or be this, or need to do this, or should do this, but it's not really true to our true self, that creates a huge misalignment in every aspect of us. And we truly think that's us. We truly think that's us. I'll sit there and watch people go, oh my God, you think that's really what you want? No. It's not what you really are. It's not what you really want. But I can see why you think that. Because their chart is showing why. It's the trauma. It's the pathology. And every pathology grows out of this foundation layers. 3 problems. We all only have 3 problems. But those problems manifested into many, many problems. As much as, possibly a lot of problems, okay? And we have to backtrack and resolve all those problems and heal all those problems until we heal this foundational layer. When we heal the foundation layer, we will not fall into pathology again. Okay? If we heal to the foundation specific, but we don't heal the foundation, all it takes is one trauma, one person you love dying, one bad breakup, getting fired even though you did a good job and it wasn't your fault, one shit trauma in your life to set you right back down the road of trauma. So when we focus on healing, we have to go deep. We can't just say, yeah, I've got this little problem, I want to resolve it. Resolve that and then go deeper, deeper, deeper. Take it until you get to this foundation problem. One of the beautiful things about this course is, you're like, what is the foundation problem? When am I healed? Well, when you learn how pathology manifests, you're going to know, okay, I've healed this. This one's done. I've cut the head off this snake. It's done. It's not coming back to life. Otherwise, it's like a hydra. You cut this head off, pops back in. You cut that head off, look over there, it grew back. That's the hydra. But if we take it all the way to the foundation and heal that part, the hydra is dead. No more heads popping up. And that's why it feels like we have so many things wrong with us. It feels like, oh my God, I've been healing for 40 years, I'm still a nutcase, No. It's because you healed this, and you healed this, and you turned around, there was 5 hydra heads, popped out of nowhere, because you didn't heal the foundation specific or the foundation. We got to go all the way to the foundation. If we heal that one, no more heads are coming back. Okay? So, if we keep going, if we heal whatever level we're on, you might be in elemental, you might be in male-female, you might be in foundation specific, you might be in foundation, you might be on the initial layer. That's the only thing you have to heal. Wherever you are, if we heal one, we got to make sure if there's another one lurking, we heal that. If there's another one lurking, we heal that. And invest the time to heal all the way so you don't relapse. Otherwise a bad trigger can set you right back into that other pathology, but in a slightly subtly different way, so that you don't even know it's a different pathology, and it feels like you got a whole new problem, but you don't. You have 3 problems at most, 1 problem at least. That's it. That's the root. And we got to tear this pathological weed out by the roots, you know? And so that's the goal of this course. So I hope everyone gets into this. It's going to be a lot of fun. I kind of feel like this is probably the most important course I've taught to date. If I do it the way I'm envisioning it, it'll certainly be the most important course I've done to date. So I hope a lot of people want to approach this and really start using astrology, not just to say, oh yeah, I get it, I see what's happening, okay, yeah, okay. But let's take the next step and let's go in there and cut the heads off the hydra until there's none left and really heal ourselves. Okay, thank you.